Hi there, hope you're well. You know, plunge saws or track saws have made it much easier to get straight cuts with a good edge, and the entry-level saws, the supermarket saws if you like, have made that much more accessible. But getting a square cut, a cut at 90 degrees, well, that takes a little bit more effort. Of course, you can solve that in lots of ways and at lots of different price points, but in this video I'm going to show you how to make an accurate reference square that's quick, easy and cheap to make. Let's dive right in. Now, you don't need any special jigs or templates for this, just geometry. And I'm going to take you back to school just briefly and talk about the 3, 4, 5 triangle. Basically, any triangle with sides of 3, 4 and 5 units. These units can be anything. They could be inches, feet, meters, miles, whatever. But any triangle of those proportions will always return a perfect right angle between the 3 and 4 sides, because geometry. If you really want to explore more, there's a link down below that'll tell you all about Pythagorean triples, but I'm just happy to accept this fact and move on. So we need to mark out a 3, 4, 5 triangle precisely and then cut it accurately. And to avoid errors, I'm going to do the marking out with a little block of scrap and some panel pins. I've cut 2 strips of thick paper, actually wallpaper lining paper, and drawn a line down the length of one. With that one on top, I've taped them down onto the 12mm birch ply that I'll be using for the square, and I've hammered a panel pin through the paper into the ply at one end, right on the line. If you need help to keep it absolutely perpendicular, then a 2mm hole drilled through a block of scrap, then cut through, works well as a guide. So with one end of the spacer butted up against the pin, and we'll get into the specifics about size later on, I'm driving another through the paper into the ply, again right on the line. And I'm going to repeat this right along the paper until you get 6 pins and pinholes, because that'll give us our 5 units. Now we're going to carefully remove the pins, we don't want to bend them, and untape the paper strips. Okay, so what we got now, we've got a piece of plywood and 2 pieces of paper with 5 evenly spaced holes in them, both identical. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to, on the plywood, 6 holes representing 5 units. On the plywood I'm going to come inboard one on each side. That'll become clear why we're doing that in a minute. And I'm going to take a 5 unit piece of paper and just pop that pin through there into that hole. And tap it down. You can check it for plumb if you really want. And then on this one I'm going to take the hole that we marked, so we've got 1, 2, 3 units. I'm going to come up 1 hole, so we've got 4 on this side, and we're going to do the same thing again. Pin through there, into the hole. And then all we need to do is join these 2 at the top. And that gives us our 3, 4, 5 triangle. At least it will do. Give me a sec. There we are, absolutely perfect 3, 4, 5 triangle. I'm going to take these paper strips off and then repin them, and then we can start thinking about cutting. Okay, we need to cut this out. We're going to use our plunge saw or our track saw for that. Here's our next dilemma. If we put our track up against those pins, that'll give us the perfect cut line, absolutely in line, absolutely perfect. But if we do that, we're going to cut off our reference point for the next cut between these 2 pins. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use a couple of little bits of scrap. These are 9mm, I think, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you've got, and a straight edge to bring that cut line outboard slightly. Just put a couple of little spring clamps on there to keep it in place. and we can take those off. Butt our guide rail right up against that straight edge, and I almost never do this, but I'm going to clamp this on this time for a straight cut, because as I said earlier, we're trying to make this as accurate as we can get it. Okie dokie, so we now got the perfect right angle here. Here's my little trend digital gauge from there, and there we have 90 degrees. Thank you very much. As if you can't trust what a YouTuber says. So that was way more laborious to describe than it was to actually do. So now we've got the perfect right angle. Now what we could do, we could connect the dots here to get the perfect 3, 4, 5 triangle, and that will work fine if you don't mind unequal sides, which can be quite handy. But actually the angles that you get aren't particularly useful to us if we do that. It's something like 54 and 36 degrees in the end. So what I'm going to do is move, if you remembered, I moved the pins one inboard. I'm actually going to go back to the most outermost pin, because then we've got two sides that are 4 units long. We've got a perfect 90 degree angle here, and these two will give us a perfect 45 degrees. So that's what I'm going to do. Do the same little trick again with the spacers. We could just put it up against the line, I suppose, couldn't we? Yeah, go on, let's do that anyway. So there you have it, an easy, accurate 45 and 90 degree reference square that you can make to any size you want, quickly, easily and cheaply. Seriously, it's taken much longer for me to explain the process than it has to actually do. And when I was first starting out, I made loads of these for quick one-off jobs, cutting some foam insulation, sure, make a 4-foot long one to cover the whole width of a sheet, or use this smaller reference square to make a larger one. This one I used 110mm or 4.5-inch spacer, and it makes about a 450mm or 18-inch square. Obviously, just change the size of the spacer, you can change the size of the square. Over time, of course, you get more sophisticated solutions to making square cuts. The MFT, the rail squares, an MFT top with bench dogs and rail dogs. But I honestly can't put my hand on my heart and say that what I get these days with all this sophistication and relative expense is any squarer, if that's a word, than what I managed to get with a simple homemade plywood or MDF triangle. More convenient, absolutely, more appropriate for a production environment, certainly, but no more accurate. We'll leave it there for this one, I think. Thanks ever so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, then do give the video a thumbs up, share it freely, and do consider subscribing for more regular workshop videos, or come and join the Patreon party at patreon.com/10minute workshop for additional exclusive content or behind the scenes videos. And I want to thank all the folks who do just that, as their contributions really do help me to keep the lights on here and make it possible for me to make regular, freely available, slightly niche content like this for the 10 Minute Workshop channel. That really is it for this week, though. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.